Welcome back to Sacred Healing and Enchantment. This is your podcast for alchemical transformation, deep dive healing, connection, and embodied leadership. Whether you are a seeker, a professional healer, or a coach, this podcast will support you through topics like collective care, archetypal shadow work, and ancient embodiment. Each episode will offer tools and insights to help you expand both personally and professionally. I am Melanie Monaco. I'm a priestess and mentor. I created the first ever and top rated self love coach certification course. I have made over $1 million in my sacred business through courses, workshops, retreats, and more. And at the time of recording this episode, I am 19 weeks pregnant with my second baby. I'm so excited to be here with you. And today we're going to be doing some work around entrepreneurship and talking about some trends that I see happening in the coaching space. So if you're an entrepreneur or a coach, or even if you love purchasing programs from coaches and you just love the coaching industry as a client and community member, this might be interesting to you because I'm noticing some trends and some themes that I think are really valuable to be aware of as creators and consumers of this growing industry. So let's dive in. First things first, I want to give a full disclosure that if you don't know already, if you missed my last episode, I took my first trimester mostly off. I still had coaching calls and some materials for my programs that I was working on. But for the most part, I stopped marketing my business except for the automated marketing that I had in place. I wasn't posting on social media. I wasn't actively marketing and promoting my business, which was really great because I had hyperemesis, which is like morning sickness times 1,000. And I needed to take that space, and I thought that might happen. So I set up a lot in 2024 to prepare my business and prepare me and our family to be able to move through that season. And you can hear more about that on the last episode. Now, that disclosure is that some of these trends I'm seeing, maybe they've been going on for a little bit longer than what I've been seeing, or the few months when I was off, maybe some things changed. But given where I was in 2024 and what I was seeing at the end of 2024, now it's May 2025. Here is what I have seen change in the coaching industry. Also, being that I've been in this industry for many years now, and I was in it during 2020 and in the years after, in 2018, pre-pandemic, during pandemic, post-pandemic. You know how much our world has changed in the last decade. And so there is a lot that I have seen change in this industry. And what the coaching and healing industry now is really different than what it was 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago, even 2.5 years ago. So I want to talk about what I've seen change, what I think is professional, what I think is important for professionals to keep in mind, and what I'm going to be focusing on in some of the new climate that we're moving through. So if you are somebody who follows a lot of healers and coaches and practitioners online, one thing I'm noticing, and I want you to think if you're noticing this too, there's a lot of big pivots. So I'm seeing a lot of ideal client changes, like people are suddenly shifting their marketing to talk to slightly different versions of their ideal client. A lot of people are talking to versions of their ideal client that are perhaps further along. So if they were working with beginners, they're starting to work with more advanced people. And this is something that I was starting to play around with at the beginning of last year. And right now I have a cohort in a new program that I created for this year called the Sacred Method, which is a more advanced practitioner training. It's kind of like a next level from the self-love coach certification course. That combines my ritual facilitator training that I've been running for the past couple of years as well, or a few years as well. So the pivots that I'm seeing in the industry are that several coaches, practitioners, healers are just starting to speak to perhaps the collective evolution that has happened in the coaching industry, given that so much of the coaching industry has expanded and grown due to social media. There's more people than there were before gaining access to the tools and practices and techniques. And what that means is that there's more people who are seeking that next step. Is this a good thing or a bad thing that so many coaches are pivoting? I don't know, but it's just a trend that I'm noticing. And I do think that, and what I'm realizing is actually a lot of the content I'm consuming right now from coaches are coaches who are still marketing to that first generation of entrepreneurs, like people who are just starting out. And I find that they're often speaking to what's happening in the marketing world and in the online business space in a way that is really approachable and also just really fun. I do also follow coaches who are working specifically with seven-figure entrepreneurs. Um, but I do think there are people who are anchoring in, or like with this pivot, are doubling down on working with beginners, which is really cool too. But I am seeing that trend. So that's something interesting. The other trend I'm seeing is that a lot of entrepreneurs and, like, especially in the online marketing space, a lot of sacred business owners are kind of burning things to the ground and, like, launching brand new programs or reinventing their programs. So a lot of people who either were doing live programs and now making them pre-recorded and available evergreen, which means forever, always, or people who had a program and are like burning it down and completely starting over. And there's people who were doing an evergreen program and now they're making it live. Like, a lot of people are just like really reinventing the wheel. This tells me that, because I'm even seeing this with like 8-figure marketing online business coaches. And what this tells me is that the coaching industry is perhaps shifting in big ways. And I actually just listened to an interesting podcast episode with two online marketing experts, Amy Porterfield and Jenna Kutcher. And Amy Porterfield was referencing somebody else, I can't remember who, it's a friend of hers, who was saying that there's a trust recession right now in the coaching space and maybe even just overall, in part because of our political, oh, my cat just jumped up. In part because of the political landscape and the uncertainty around the economy within that. And in part because when the coaching industry had its big boom in 2020, 2021, there are so many brand new coaches in the space, really big promises being made. And unfortunately, because there's not that much regulation in the coaching industry, there is a higher percentage of people who maybe didn't know what they were doing and were making promises they couldn't keep. And, that's one of the reasons why my program is accredited by the International Coaching Federation, because that does provide a little level of, or a layer of credibility. And also like the testimonials and, having had clients like stay with me and be loyal for, 8 years, like shows that, there's a real follow through. But unfortunately, and I think this is especially true in some of the like get rich quick vibe spaces, I think there's a lot of people selling coaching and not able to follow through on it, making big promises, making a lot of money, but not able to really hold people in the way that they needed to be held. And so that's created, I think, a distrust towards coaches, like even big name coaches, people with hundreds of thousands of followers. There's a Reddit thread called life coach snark that I keep an eye on, because it's people who have like been burned by the coaching industry. And I mean, as a coach, like I want to know what's happening so that I can make sure not only that I am serving people in a way that is helpful, but that I'm also avoiding any of these like blind spots or pitfalls that other coaches might be having and failing people in different ways. Like I don't want to fail my community. So I like to keep an eye on what people are complaining about in the coaching industry so that I can make sure to not do those things. And overall, like I've never come up against anything in the snark that like directly opposes things that I'm doing. But anyway, that being said, I think that there is a disenchantment with industries overall, like not just the coaching industry. And what I tell my coaches that I'm training who are, well, how come a client would come to me if they could just go to a therapist? Or, why would they come to me if they can just do this or that? And in any industry, there's going to be people who are really good at their jobs and really bad at their jobs. Like, I need to think about maybe you've gotten a really good haircut and a really bad haircut. I certainly have. Or you've gotten really good massages or really bad massages. And it's not the massage or the haircut itself that is the problem. It's the practitioner. And I've been really harmed by therapists. I've also been harmed by coaches. And my life has been transformed in miraculous ways by coaches and by therapists. And so if you are doing your work in integrity and you're doing it in a way that is resonant with your clients and the right people are coming into your sphere, there will be miraculous transformations. And it's not necessarily due to the modality, though in part it is, but it's also due to the resonance between you and your clients and your community. And I think making that piece clear is really important as practitioners. Trust building is so key. And in a trust recession, in that, which I think we are, I mean, I'm certainly more hesitant in the online space to trust creators and influencers and practitioners than I used to be. What the question we get to ask ourselves is like, okay, what does it mean to show up in full authenticity and integrity so that people can really feel the truth of what we're putting out there, rather than just another scheme or another way to get burned, another unfulfilled promise. So that's something that I'm seeing. What a good response to this is if you're a coach and you're like, yeah, actually things have slowed down, or, you know what, I am having a harder time converting people into clients, or, like the industry is shifting. Like, I don't know how to like work through this. I think a really good strategy, and this is something that I'm seeing other coaches implement, is lower ticket offers that are less of an investment, because there's so many high ticket investments. There's so many coaches being like, well, just pitch your $5,000 program and then, just sell 3 of your $5,000 program. You'll have $15,000 a month, easy peasy. And it's like, well, selling $5,000 program now in May of 2025 is not the same as it was 2 years ago. And I think that people are a little more conservative financially speaking, and to meet them where they're at, creating smaller pieces of content, smaller programs, smaller, less time consuming on your part offers at a smaller price is a way to meet people where they're at in that space. And to answer the question about the trust recession, like only you know how to show up in your own authenticity. And my game plan personally is to just continue to be authentic, but like to just be more candid and to just be more myself and to communicate with my community in a way that feels like we have the foundation of friendship, which I do with so many members of my community. So if that's a strategy that you want to play with as an entrepreneur, I say take it and run with it. But I want you to notice what you're seeing, especially in the big names who have a lot of followers. Like, are you seeing these pivots of audience? Are you seeing these pivots of offers? Are you seeing people like totally reinventing the wheel? What that tells us is that they're re-strategizing. They're like, that wasn't working. So I need to do something else. And that's okay. I don't want anybody to freak out or to think the coaching industry is dead. It's certainly not. It is still growing. It's just shifting. I think where more people are spending money is in smaller offers, is in um, downloadable content, is in like easy bite-sized things. Um, I invested over almost $20,000 in coaching last year. So, and I know many people who have invested like that much and more in coaching. So people are still investing in so I don't want to scare anybody out, but as we're thinking about strategy, I think these are some ways to meet people where they're at, especially if you work with people who have been burned, are feeling a little untrusting, or perhaps they're people who are just newer to the industry. It's important for us as practitioners, as coaches, as healers, to meet people where they're at in every capacity, not only in the healing work, but in the marketing as well. So I want you to think about the trends. Let me know what you're noticing. Let me know what you're planning on doing. And of course, if you have any specific questions, I am more than happy to answer. I'm going to continue to be focusing on automation. I'm going to be continuing to create some new offers. My business has been sustainable through my pregnancy so far. And I'm going to be funding my maternity leave. And so I'll be looking at different strategies and ways to show up and do my purposeful work that I love to do. That also provides enough to, fund that time that I'll need in the 4th trimester when my baby enters into the world. And so you can stay tuned to see what's happening there. My next big event is actually at the end of this month, May 31st to June 2nd. I am offering once again my Intro to Self-Love Coaching mini course. And you might remember I offered this in November 2022. And the reason why I'm offering it live again is because the world has changed since November 2022. So even if you've gone through that program or you've done the mini course, I want to encourage you to attend this one because it's going to be different. It's going to be updated. We're going to be covering some really important things. It's still going to be day 1, self-love foundations, day 2, professionalism as a coach, day 3, manifestation, which, I teach non-toxic manifestation. And I encourage you to sign up. It's free, and I'll send you the replay. If you can't attend live, though, definitely do attend live if you can. The final thing I want to mention and the trend that I'm seeing is that there is definitely a division in the spiritual, especially the spiritual industry, that wasn't there before. So if we go back to like the hippie revolution, the 1960s, there was so much return to the land, free love, connecting back to spirituality, the revolution, civil rights, the, peace in the face of the Vietnam War, right? This, like the hippies who really in, in our memorable time experience, like, many of our grandparents or parents were part of that. They were preaching a really specific set of beliefs and abiding to a specific set of beliefs. What has happened since that time is that a lot of the foundation set of like free love and return to the land and return to holistic living and healthy living and natural medicine and all of that has become politicized in different ways. And so at that point, most of the hippies were either like apolitical or they were staunchly liberal, meaning they were like pro gay rights, they were pro women's rights, they were and bodily autonomy, they were um, anti-war. Um, and now what we're seeing, or what I'm witnessing, is that there's a lot of people who subscribe to a lot of these ideals of healthy living as made popular or repopularized in the 60s and are really conservative politically. And we see this in the Make America Healthy Again movement in RFK. And a lot of these folks are, really it's rooted in like anti-vax theory. And then we, on the other hand, have a lot of really progressive and, again, liberal, pro-human rights across the board spiritual leaders. And then we have people who are kind of just like tapped out and are apolitical. And this is just more, and granted, I was not alive in the 60s. So, I'm going off of what I've heard and what I'm history and what I know of having people in my family who were like very hippie in the 60s and 70s. But what I'm aware of is that it's just way more, there's just more division and opposition in this, like, we all share this set of beliefs of like healthy living, return to the land, and trusting in the universe, connection with the divine, all of that. And then there are like people who have these different ideologies of what that should look like collectively. And it's created especially a division, and this is so rampant on social media. And what I think this means for people who work in the wellness space is that we have to be, first of all, and this goes in with the trust piece I was talking about, really clear on our values with our audiences. Because there's going to be people who align with different ideologies, and like we might all agree, like, oh yes, let's, raise the vibration of the collective, and God is love. Like we all agree, and yet we have really different beliefs around bodily autonomy and women's rights. And yet we have really different beliefs around trans rights, or yet we have really different beliefs around public health. And there's going to be people who, and I've experienced this myself as like somebody who's consuming content, consuming information, and consuming courses, or I'm a client of people where like I think we're on the same page about these things, and then it's like, oh, we're not. And what that means is that suddenly I don't trust that person as much as I did, because I'm realizing, even though we have some shared beliefs, a lot of them are different, and their beliefs are not aligned with the world that I want to build. And as a consumer, I don't need everybody to believe exactly what I believe, but I need to know that we're at least on the same page about certain things. And that's important to me. And I think that's important, increasingly important to a lot of people. And so I think as a coach or as a practitioner, it might be something to consider for you of like, how do you share your values with your community so that people know what they're signing up for, so that they're not blindsided. And it's certainly okay to not agree on everything. And there are certain things that people hold in their convictions that are deal breakers. So I want you to think about, like, what are your deal breakers, value based, and what do you think your ideal client's deal breakers are? And how can you speak to some of those deal breakers and just make your value stance really clear? It will definitely repel people, but more than it will repel people, it will attract the right people. And I'm not saying this for you to like be divisive and hateful towards people who don't have the same views as you. This is really just to let people know, because as I'm saying, it's like really easy to get blindsided in this industry right now. And be like, oh, I thought we had the same views and we don't. Right. And that's okay. We want to hold curiosity around like other people's views. We want to try to meet people where they're at. And also, you're going to be for some people and not for some people. And how do you make it clear what you stand for so that the people who are coming into your space, whether or not they agree with you 100%, at least know, right? As a client, I want to know who I'm working with because of the trust piece. I'm like, do you believe in these rights for people? Do you believe in the things that are important to me? These values are important to me, and I want to make sure that who I'm working with at least has a similar shared value system. There's just way more of a division of values in the wellness world now than ever before, which I think is really what I'm getting to. And so as practitioners, I think part of the trend we're going to see, I'm not seeing this. Well, no, I am seeing this. I saw there, we woke up to a lot of this the day after the election in the US, or I did. I woke up and was scrolling through my feed and I was like, wow, I did not realize that person was politically affiliated that way. Like, it was really illuminating. And it shifted my perception of the content that was being put out by those people and where they were coming from in both good ways and bad ways, right? It went both ways. And so you get to decide like how you get to share your values. You do not have to speak directly to political candidates. You don't have to tear people down for their beliefs. I want you to just share what you believe and what you stand for. I think that's going to become increasingly important because we're in the midst of a cultural revolution right now. Like astrologically, we know this. Astrologically, we knew this was coming. I'm not an astrologer, but I follow astrologers, and they're all like, oh my gosh, like the last time we were in these placements was the American Revolution and then the French Revolution. And I'm like, okay, like we're in it, so as spiritual leaders, we're on the front lines of the revolution from a spiritual lens. So how do you show up in that? And how do you make it clear about what you stand for? All right, recap. Let's go. Be clear in your values. Build trust through authenticity and being really true to who you are. And be curious about how you can meet people where they're at in terms of their comfort levels with the coaching industry and investing in themselves. And make offers to meet people at that place. If this was helpful to you, let me know. I hope to see you at my upcoming mini course, Intro to Self-Love Coaching. You can register. I'm going to put the link in the show notes and then whatever's below this video. Wherever you're listening to this, you can also go to melaniemonaco.com where you can find all of the links to everything, or my Instagram, Melanie Rose Monaco. You can send me a DM or you can send me an email, melanie@melaniemonaco, if you can't find what you're looking for. But I'm really excited to see you there. All right, my love, sending you blessings, so much love, and I will see you soon.